Hey, what's up? Welcome to another edition of the Mandatory Live. We've been going crazy on the lives for about a week now, but we're happy that you're here with us. Make sure to follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO, and also hit that like and subscribe button if you like the content. It also helps the channel grow. Lots to get into. We are going to take a look into and preview everything that you need to know for George Kambosos and Vasiliy Lomachenko, which is coming up this weekend. We will get into that. We're going to let you know what's next for Loma if he wins, what's next for George Kambosos if he wins. Also, we're going to give you our best bets for that. Before we get into all of that, though, Bryan, we have to get into some big news that came out last week. And this one kind of shook the boxing world after Ryan Garcia shocked the boxing world. He shocked it again. He tested positive for PEDs before and after his fight with Devin Haney. And Bryan, your thoughts on this? What he actually tested for was two PEDs. One of them was called Ostarine, and that also pretty much, if you're cutting, it helps you keep your muscle mass. It also strengthens your tendon. So a lot of people believe that maybe, his strength when he was punching Devin Haney had something to do with that. But nonetheless, this is all alleged. Even though the positive test came out, Ryan Garcia also requested a B sample. Those results have not come out just yet. But Bryan, your thoughts on all this, and what does it mean for Ryan Garcia?
Frankie Montas tested positive for this. If you follow baseball, and he got suspended 80 games. Just Ostarine was in his system, and a lot of these drugs, athletes take them. Like not all athletes, but like athletes who get banged for some of this and testing positive. Like, yeah, these are the drugs that are in their systems. Which we actually covered this as it related to Alicia Baumgartner, which nothing seemed to happen to her, but she had shit in her system that like Alex Rodriguez and other baseball players had, like real steroids that people would get suspended over. But boxing is boxing, so it is what it is. The Ryan Garcia thing is interesting. He's requested a B sample tested, and we don't know the results of that yet. Somebody posted a video claiming that they knew the results, but the video was just like a nothing burger, so nothing came out of that. That was probably to juice some views. So I think with Ryan Garcia, like, listen, if he tested positive for this, which he did, but if it comes out like, because he's claiming, he's doing the whole thing. How could I have cheated? Here's an email which proves nothing. Somebody on my team framed me, like all this, the shit that people normally do when they get caught with these things. Innocent until proven guilty. But typically, like when you test positive for steroids, you did them. Like that's kind of how this one works. And if we find out that he is to blame for this, I guess is how I'll frame it, then yeah, he should be suspended. The fight should be a no contest. Devin Haney goes back to being undefeated. Ryan Garcia gets suspended for however long they determine is right. And there it is. Like I remember Kenichi Ogawa, after fighting Tevin Farmer in late 2017. First of all, it was one of the worst robberies in boxing, like that I could remember. They gave Kenichi Ogawa the win despite getting outboxed, but then they found that he tested positive for drugs, illegal substances after the fact, and he was the champion. He had won the title from Tevin Farmer, but then they reversed the decision, no contest, and he was suspended for like a year or whatever the case may be, and he ended up winning the title again later on. So, I think with Ryan Garcia, like, yeah, this is damning considering this was allegedly in a system. We'll still say allegedly. Um, 3 pounds overweight on top of that, so he didn't make weight. And the reason why we've been waiting to talk about this is because we've been waiting for more information. And boxing is boxing. We're slow on the information here, so we're not going to not talk about it. And yeah, I think that's what should happen if he's positive, and if he's like totally guilty. And if not, then we wipe it away. You keep things the way they are, and then everyone proceeds as is.
Yeah, so we're still waiting on more information to be released. I think the important thing is how much he had in his system because he did end up posting, and I feel like this part means nothing. He kept on posting his VADA test previously before he obviously tested positive before the fight and after the fight, but there was like a 2-week period where there was no testing involved. He could have been taking it then. This is all alleged, of course, innocent until proven guilty. However, I think the amounts in a system that really matters because Ostarine and the other PED that was found as well, which is testosterone essentially. Those things are found in supplements. So maybe he took a bad supplement. We don't know. It depends how much was in his body. And that's the main thing. If we found out he had like ridiculous amounts in his body, then he clearly did it, right? But if we find out that it was like a really, really tiny amount of ostarine, then it might have just been like a dirty supplement. And so there are supplements that everyone take, like bodybuilders and stuff like that. I take supplements. I might have ostarine in my body. I don't know. Right? There could be a dirty supplement. Okay.
Come on.
I have supplements on my desk right now. Okay.
You better read those ingredients.
I'm not bulky like that, but I'm just saying that there are dirty supplements, and like ostarine is found in supplements, right? So if he took a supplement, regardless, when you're a boxer and you're fighting and you have a fight coming up, you are responsible for everything that you put in your body. So listen, it depends on the amount. We are going to be finding out that information, I'm sure, throughout the next few weeks. Sometimes with boxing, it takes a little while. But I think the most important part here is that if Ryan Garcia is found guilty, then this is like the same thing. I believe Amir Khan got caught for PEDs in the end of his career, but he got suspended for like 2 years. I don't know, but there should be a suspension, and Devin Haney would then still be undefeated. This to me, I think is really, it taints Ryan Garcia's career. Right when you think that he's taken a turn and he's got the biggest win of his career, defeating someone like Devin Haney, who was undefeated in the lightweight division, this happens. And I think this is something that will stick alongside Ryan Garcia for the rest of his career, and he's not going to be able to hide from that.
So you mentioned Amir Khan. To back up your point, it was a 2-year suspension. So this is actually funny. The anti-doping officially suspended him 2 years after one of his tests for his February 2022 bout loss to Kell Brook revealed trace amounts of ostarine. Right back what we're talking about. So he got 2 years for that. I think he just retired after that at that point. And
Yeah,
some
it was
people,
the end of his career, so like he probably didn't even
yeah,
care.
he also lost that fight. I think that's either before or after. I think that was after Kell Brook lost to Terrence Crawford, and then Kell Brook and Amir Khan finally fought after they should have fought like seven, no joke,
Yeah.
6 years earlier. I agree with XL in the comments who says you're either pregnant or you're not. Like that's kind of what this is. Like
Sometimes you're not, and you think you are, and there's a test that comes out positive, but it's really not. So no, XL, that's not like a fair comment.
Eventually you find
No,
out,
but
don't
still,
you?
you can think that you're pregnant though. You can take a test and be like, "Oh my god, I'm pregnant," and then you can even go to your like OBGYN and then find out that you're not.
I also
This is real stuff. Like that's
no,
a
no, no.
terrible
I'm
comment,
listen.
XL. That we're gonna nix that comment because like you can think that you're pregnant and you're actually not. So that I get what you're trying to say, but that comment doesn't make any sense.
Let All right, we're gonna let that one go. Um, I and any other comments, let us know what you think about the Ryan Garcia stuff. We actually did have a couple others that I'm gonna get to in a second. But yeah, ultimately, like again, most of the times when you test positive for these things, it's because you had them in your system, knowingly, unknowingly, whatever. It's kind of up to you and your team as a boxer and as somebody, as you said, you're putting stuff in your body. You can take supplements, but some supplements you can't. Like there are levels to what kinds of supplements, and we've heard Canelo complain about bad Mexican meat or whatever the case may be. Like you're supposed to know these things, and this is why you have like nutritionists and trainers and managers and things of that nature to help keep you on check. Okay, so hustle, no, not hustle man, because we're gonna get to that later. IMPK 13, but hustle man, if you want to leave another comment about this, let us know. IMPK 13, and this is something we talked about leading up to the fight, Shantelle. Ryan Garcia looked unusually big. Like people were commenting before like the weigh-ins and before press conferences and things of that nature, like, yo, this dude is not going to make weight. IMPK 13, I noticed how big Ryan's arms were before the fight. I did not think anything of it at the time. The fight should be declared a no contest. He definitely looked a lot leaner against Tank, though, different weight class and things of that nature. But even the rehydration, man, like, come on.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because it's like you're gonna deny it, right? Most of the time when someone gets busted for PEDs, they deny it. But Ryan Garcia saying that, he was set up and all of this, it's like if you didn't do it, just get your B sample tested and go through the process. If you didn't do it, you'll be found not guilty. They'll see how much was in your body. And if you did it, then we'll know. It's pretty simple, right? All the other antics, there's no need for it. But I understand it's Ryan Garcia. So we're going to see that side of it. But it's really unfortunate. And Bryan, here's the one thing that I ask.
Uh-huh.
If he, let's do two questions for this.
Sure.
If he isn't guilty, how do you think that fares for him? And would he still be considered possibly top 10 on the pound for pound list? Maybe he gets in there. Do you still think of him as one of the best at 140 if he's not guilty? Like
I,
if there was a tiny amount, like it was a dirty supplement.
I don't think he can. One, I think he's going to be a welterweight now
Mhm.
because he kind of was like insinuating he can't make 140 at this point, which is crazy to think about because he came up as a lightweight. But typically, when you take no, I'm kidding. I think I don't know if he's on the pound for pound list necessarily because like even still he was 3 pounds overweight for that fight. I think he still gets all the things that come with hey he beat Devin Haney, but also like we can't overlook that he missed weight and people would say oh it's only 3 pounds. Ryan Garcia tried to say this, oh it's only 3 pounds, but like you're a boxer, you know the importance of making weight. Like if you compete in boxing and mixed martial arts and whatever your combat sport is where there are weight classes, one of the things that you will lose respect for is failing to make weight. Even if you're off by a pound 2 pounds, like this is just something you have to do. Like it's for us it's like showing up to work doing the basic mundane shit that we do at our jobs, right? Whether it's writing emails or whatever, like that's what making weight is for fighters. It's just an essential thing. You have to make there are fighters who've never missed weight before, right?
Yeah.
Like Marlon Esparza recently lost 3 world titles or whatever it was because she was like a pound or two overweight. And it's like, yeah, like when you're the champion, especially, but like when you're a fighter in general, like, yeah, you make weight. Like that's your job. That's the first part of your job. And the second is obviously like fighting and things of that nature, like actually competing. But you have to make weight. So I still think it's a big win for him. But even if he gets off free here, you could still argue that it's somewhat tainted. I still give him credit for how he fought and things like that, but there's still a lot there, like how much he rehydrated up to, and just the weight thing. But he beat Devin Haney, and we will still say he beat Devin Haney if if he gets off on this. But I'm not sure he will, honestly, given what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think if he does come out and he's innocent, because innocent until proven guilty, obviously, I think that's still a massive win for him. I think he can still do whatever he wants in boxing in terms of fights. He did say he wants to move up. Maybe we get a fight with him and Teofimo Lopez. But of course, Bryan, I think the bigger story would be if this is all true, because then not only does it taint his career, Ryan Garcia will then likely serve a suspension. It will probably be a long suspension. It might be like Amir Khan because they literally tested positive for the same thing. And if it is a 2-year ban, then he comes back, and I don't know if he's the same fighter that he was before.
There's already people that think that he might not be in the sport that long because he wants to pursue other things, be a star, or whatever. So I feel like that'll probably just accelerate that process. Like he may just frame it as like, oh, boxing did me wrong, so I'm out and I'm gonna just go be famous and do what it is I do and what it is I want.
Make rap songs. Yeah, I honestly think that if Ryan Garcia, if it gets proven that he was guilty, that he took the PEDs and then he serves like a 2-year ban like Amir Khan, which I'm just going by because it was the same drug, I think Ryan Garcia would exit out of boxing, because at that point, how hard is it going to be to get redemption? I think maybe he'd want it, but it would be extremely hard. And at that point, like I think he would be kind of looked funny. His career would be tainted. And if anything, I not only would feel really bad for Devin Haney throughout this whole entire process if Ryan Garcia does come back guilty, because not only did listen, the way that he lost was bad, right? People are talking about his chin, but it's also dangerous. Like if Ryan Garcia did this, he put Devin Haney in a very, very dangerous position. And I got to hate that for Devin Haney. That's probably the worst thing you could do to somebody.
Like, it always reminds me of Miguel Cotto and Antonio Margarito when stuff like this happens. That's another one that's like super high profile that I could think of. We know about the plaster wraps. So it wasn't a steroid that Margarito tested positive for. And for people who are less familiar, Miguel Cotto was welterweight champion fighting Antonio Margarito. This was in 2018, and I remember there being 2018, 2008, excuse me. It was in 2008, so it was a while ago. And Miguel Cotto was basically in like his prime. Antonio Margarito was a dangerous, dangerous fighter. It was one of Puerto Rico, Mexico's like most famous fights. And Margarito beat the shit out of him, right? Like Miguel Cotto boxed well early on, but you could see the punches were wearing on him. And it was unusually strong. Margarito was in that fight, and he like fucking messed up his face. There was blood everywhere. Miguel Cotto, things of that nature. Took a knee at one point, like willingly, and he got stopped in the 11th round. And then it came out that he had plaster wraps leading up to that fight. It was exposed like before the Shane Mosley fight, and then Shane Mosley beat the fuck out of Antonio Margarito in the next fight, which is like probably one of the most satisfying performances ever if you're a boxing fan who is just a fan of like people getting their comeuppance. Antonio Margarito got suspended, and then years later in 2011, they fought in December. I think it was December 3rd. Miguel Cotto got his rematch, and he called for it. Like he was a champion again. He wanted to go back and get his revenge, and he did because it was the same type of fight in terms of like how they were moving around the ring. Just Margarito's punches didn't have as much sting, and Cotto was beating the fuck out of him, closed his eyes shut, and TKO'd him after 9 rounds. The fight got stopped. Devin Haney said he didn't want, reportedly said he didn't want, or no, he said this. He's not interested in the rematch, which to me is kind of like he doesn't trust that it'll be fair. But man, I would want my rematch. Like, oh my God, I would want, even if the person
Yeah.
gets suspended, comes back, like, whoo, come on, man.
If I'm Devin Haney, I want the rematch because he got absolutely annihilated in that ring. So much so that people are looking at Devin Haney and looking at him like, yo, I could easily beat him. That's how Devin Haney's being looked at right now because of his chin, because of how he got dropped. And already people were talking about how he had pillow fists. So I don't think it's a good look, but I feel bad for Devin because of the
That's the other
situation
thing.
that he's in. I feel extremely bad for him. He could have been hurt in this whole thing.
That's why Ryan looked like Ryan broke his jaw. We were talking about on the time of the fight, so that could have been much much worse. And now, like even going forward, if Devin Haney has a soft chin, because I was gonna say chin and Haney, and
Okay,
shit.
I got it. I got
Yeah,
it. I
yeah,
got it. I got it.
professional broadcaster, folks.
Yeah.
Devin Haney, uh,
Still funny.
if he has a bad chin from here on out, like a soft chin from here on out as a result of this fight, then yeah, that's dangerous because I would argue, even though Miguel Cotto still became first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best of his era, like if he doesn't have that first Margarito experience, maybe his chin is better for when he fights guys like Manny Pacquiao, for when he fights, later on in his career. And maybe he actually does fight Oscar De La Hoya immediately after, which is a rumor at that time. I don't know if that was going to happen because De La Hoya was pretty much done after the Mayweather fight
Yeah.
or the Pacquiao fight, actually, the Pacquiao fight. But like, imagine that. Like, Cotto would have had an even better career had that first Margarito experience not happened. So we don't know how this is going to change Devin Haney yet.
Yeah, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing. I hope Devin Haney comes back better than ever, but listen, I would want the rematch, and we're going to find out more information as the weeks go on, probably months, to be honest with you. Sometimes it takes forever to get all the information, but we will keep you updated here at the Mandatory. Let's get to some more comments, Bryan, and then we're going to get into our breakdown for George Kambosos and Lomachenko. Let's go over to a comment here. Let's go back to XL because I think he kind of makes an interesting point here. To be honest, a 2-year suspension without taking a percentage of his purse is just a paid vacation. Do you believe that his purse should be taken away, Bryan? If he,
Probably.
Yeah.
If you're gonna rule it a no contest, and he's the reason it happened, then yeah, probably. He seems to give off that he doesn't care about money like that. So I mean, I don't know how much it'll affect him. He didn't make weight, and he gave Devin Haney, like, as a side bet, 500 grand for every pound he was over reportedly, and that's 1.5 million. So I mean, yeah, sure.
All right, great. Let's go to the next comment right here. IMPK13. Ryan has no big wins over 135. He made weight and was clean. His whole career is one punch against Luke Campbell. He doesn't have like those names that pop out to you, but I do feel like Oscar Duarte was a tough fight. I know I'm a nerd to say something like that, but that's a tough fight. Like, that's not someone that you just win over, right? Oscar Duarte is like a tricky fighter. He does have power. So I do believe that was like a good win for him. But when you think about big names, like, yeah, Devin Haney would be the biggest name. Like, to having Devin Haney on your list is massive, right? But now that is tainted because we don't know the information. What do you feel about IMPK 13 saying that Ryan Garcia doesn't really have any big names?
Yeah, we were talking about this before the fight, and this is why I didn't think he was going to win the fight, because leading up to it, his best wins were probably Luke Campbell, Javier Fortuna, who I'm probably higher on than most people, who's a former world champion, but also he was in a weight class above where one or two weight classes above where he was like good, like really good. Also older. And like, yeah, Oscar Duarte, which, nice win. But at the same time, like Devin Haney, like, again, you pull their resumes together. Haney had much better wins leading up to this in terms of names, in terms of, just resume overall. I don't think Ryan Garcia's resume is bad, by the way. Like, I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but it just wasn't up to the standard that like Devin Haney is, and maybe perhaps some of his peers.
Yeah, I agree. For Ryan Garcia, though, there's so many questions, and I think the most frustrating part is probably how he's handling the whole situation. A lot of people aren't a fan of that at all. Let's get a look at some more comments now. This is kind of an interesting one. We'll go back to IMPK 13 really quick. Should boxing outlaw fights when a fighter is more than 1 pound overweight?
Well, Devin Haney, like, for example, I reportedly he knew about this. Well, one of the issues, and went ahead with the fight anyway. I feel like you could leave it up to the discretion of the fighter, because some fighters might not give a shit and just be like, "I'll beat him anyway," and sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Um, I think, yeah, I think you should leave it up to the fighter in that case, and their team. But I would add they should be advised well, like, because you can't just be like all testosterone filled, be like, yeah, I don't give a fuck, because it might actually be dangerous. I think people need to be advised well on this.
Yeah, and 3 pounds is a lot. I think that was the most frustrating thing when people were like, "Well, it's only like 3 pounds." No, that's a lot. Like, that's a difference. That is a big difference. So it's not just a little bit. It's not like I really want to lose 3 pounds or something like that. It's a big difference. Let's go over to nerd. Fighters that tested positive that no one talks about: Tyson Fury, Roy Jones, Fernando Vargas, Shane Mosley. Yes, Canelo also tested positive as well.
That's right.
People forget that for the bad meat, which is why I think Oscar De La Hoya was wearing that shirt, "Eat Meat," or something like that throughout the press conference all last week, or something like that. His meat shirt, whatever that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys have tested positive. That is true. Some have come out of those situations being innocent.
Hmm.
But there are some big names that have been tied to PEDs and in boxing. So
And then you
like
have people testing positive for shit like weed. You know what I mean? Which is like,
yeah.
that's people, like, you should be able to smoke weed and fight.
Yeah, you're gonna turn this into another conversation, depending on who we have here in
Didn't
the chat.
Tyson Fury test positive for cocaine?
That's different, okay? If you test
That'll
positive
help.
for
That'll
yeah,
fucking help.
oh my god, that's a I mean I wouldn't know, but I feel like
Me
that would make
neither.
you a little bit crazy.
I watch a lot of Narcos. Nerd
Oh yeah.
also comments, Trinidad was accused of loading raps by Nassim Richardson. Not really. It was more so like the hand wrapping technique. They wanted him re-wrapped a certain way because it was like a New York State rule, and they wanted him to like do it a certain way. And like Nazim Richardson, Bernard Hopkins, from my understanding, wanted him to re-wrap his hands, and he did. before the fight, and they threatened not to fight if he didn't rewrap his hands.
Ryan Hong, who always comes with the heat. Ryan, thanks for rocking with us this morning. If you test positive for cocaine and win a fight, you should get 2 green ticks on your boxer. That's a funny comment. All right, which, you know what? I feel like we should move on to the next topic now,
Yeah,
because the
yeah,
comments are
that's
getting a
fair.
little bit silly now, but we do
But I
appreciate
like
that one.
silly comments. But
Yeah,
we do have to talk about the fight coming up this
yeah.
weekend. That I don't know what's the level of excitement for this. But I'm interested in it. You know.
I think I'm more interested in just seeing Lomachenko fight and seeing what type of Lomachenko that we're going to get. So let's get into our discussion. By the way, guys, drop your comments. Keep the silly ones coming as well. Are you excited for George Kambosos and Vasiliy Lomachenko? Let's start off with the George Kambosos side of it. This fight is being held in Perth, Australia, which is on the other side of Sydney, you guys. But also, this is a big fight for George Kambosos, but people show up for him. Like, he sells out there. Australian boxing right now is on quite the wave. Bryan, if George Kambosos can get Vasiliy Lomachenko on his resume, what does that mean for him? What happens if he beats Loma?
I would be beyond stunned because, like, he didn't beat Maxie Hughes, but he got the win. We could just call that what it is. He has had like George Kambosos is so interesting to me because, like, he beats Teofimo Lopez. It was a big upset, right? And he shouldn't have beat Teofimo Lopez going into the fight, but I gave him the decision. But I'm saying, like, going into it, he was a massive underdog. That was a shocking fight, result, outcome, knocked him down. And again, I've talked about this on the show. It was just a dumb strategy by Teofimo Lopez. Just coming in overly emotional, disrespectful, looking for the knockout. And then Kambosos turns that into 2 big money Devin Haney fights. They had a rematch. Both of the fights were in Australia. And now we're looking at, like, Lomachenko. This would be a massive, like, actually, this would be more of an upset for me than even Ryan Garcia beating Devin Haney, even though the odds don't reflect that. And I think part of that was the tax of, like, hey, is Ryan, going back to Coke, is Ryan on Coke? Because leading up to the fight, people were like, hey, what's going on here? Why is he acting the way he's acting? So with George Kambosos, it'll be the biggest win of his career by far. The biggest win right now, I think, is probably Lee Selby, if not Maxie Hughes, but it's probably Lee Selby. Because that's the one that really gave him, like, that next level. I don't think that he's going to win this fight, though. I've got to be honest. Like, I don't see the pathway to it. There's an argument for Lomachenko beating Devin Haney. Lomachenko should not have lost to Orlando Salido, and Lomachenko had a close fight with Teofimo Lopez. So it's like, he's going to lose to George Kambosos? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense to me either. But also, he never won against Hughes. Right? That's my big thing, is he didn't look good against Hughes. He didn't win. He got gifted that decision. He won by majority decision. But nonetheless, I think for George Kambosos is that he sells out in Australia. Loma's going to get a big bag down there. And I think that's really good for him. But most importantly, I think if George Kambosos were to win this fight, I think it just extends his career a little bit longer, because if he loses, I feel like he could just go off into the sunset, because then he would have 3 losses on his record. And then what? Are you just that dude that's getting into the ring with guys that is being set up to lose? Because there are those guys.
In wrestling, they call that a jobber to the stars.
Yeah, or a tomato can.
No, come on. Tomato can.
Essentially, you're a tomato can at that point. Are you not? Because you're kind of, though.
Tomato can is like
they're gonna lose. Like, they're gonna get beat up.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Like what's the dude's name? Is it Martezi Logan? Martez Logan? He's like a legit journey. Like, that's very inside. He was like 26-70 or whatever it is.
But let's just go through this, right? Because
Sure.
if George Kambosos beats Lomachenko, then what would be next for him in that division?
Jesus Christmas. I wonder if they do a rematch, first of all. It's probably be the first thing
I think they probably would have to, but it's like, I'm taking a look at the division right now, and obviously I think the biggest name is Tank. Does he fight Shakur Stevenson?
I was gonna say, does Top Rank just go and like, because then you have the Lomachenko conversation, like, bro, you're 36, you're 17-4, you've lost now 3 of your last 6 fights. It will be if he loses this. Um, that's another interesting piece of this. But yeah, I think if you're Top Rank, it's like, okay, Shakur Stevenson's fighting in July. That got announced. He's fighting Artem. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's the guy who, if you remember, he fought Frank Martin, and a lot of people thought Frank Martin should not have won that fight, but he did. That's who Shakur Stevenson's fighting next. Shakur Stevenson and George Kambosos is a fight you could easily make if you're Top Rank. You could put it in November, and you could just unify at that point 2 titles, and then I think Shakur Stevenson would obviously still be a heavy favorite to win that fight. But
Yeah.
I think that's a fight you can make, and it'll be yet another money fight for George Kambosos.
He's going to be making the bread because in Australia he sells out, right? He sells tickets and he's a big deal there. So you can't hate on that. But I think for George Kambosos, having Lomachenko on his record would be huge. And then, yeah, we would get a blockbuster fight with him and Shakur Stevenson. I think that would make the most sense. So let's get into the more interesting piece because we did the George Kambosos one, right? And we're not sleeping on him, but we just know how good Lomachenko is. And I think this is the biggest piece. What happens if Lomachenko wins?
If Lomachenko wins this fight, well, Kambosos is out of the picture at this point, in terms of contendership and all that. And Vasiliy Lomachenko, then you have like a fucking massive fight on your hands if you're Top Rank, and you know where I'm going because I just went there. Vasiliy Lomachenko versus Shakur Stevenson. Like, are you kidding me? I've been wanting to see that fight since Shakur Stevenson has sort of progressed, particularly when he became a champion at 130. I was like, oh, okay, like he's actually reaching like Lomachenko territory. Lomachenko had already been a lightweight at that point. It's perfect. Like, I think that's what I would go for next. If Lomachenko's interested, he may want like a voluntary title defense before that. You know what I mean? He may want something else before that. I don't know when's the last time he's had one of those type of fights where he just has like a sort of light work title defense, because he's had a weird sort of arc since losing to Teofimo Lopez. But yeah, I think that's the fight I would look at.
But you know what? I don't know if he would take another like stupid fight before fighting a guy like Shakur Stevenson because I mean Loma's getting older, right? Like he only has so much time at this point where it's like we're kind of seeing the latter end of his career. He's 36 years old now.
Uh-huh.
Right? So this is like the end of his career. This is Lomachenko's last run. This is his last run. He wanted to be undisputed, and to be perfectly honest, to see him so crushed after Devin Haney, after losing that bout to Devin Haney, because I feel like a lot of people thought he won. I think he did enough. I think Devin did enough. I thought I gave Devin the last round from what I remember. So I did have Devin edging out Lomachenko. But for Loma, I think if he wins this fight, then he has a massive fight against Shakur Stevenson. And do we ever possibly get him against Tank? Like if he was able to take care of Shakur Stevenson, wouldn't him and Tank be a blockbuster fight? That would make a lot of money.
I want Tank to fight one of these dudes at Top Rank. Just one of them, right? Like just make the fight happen. Tank is awesome, might be the best in this weight class. I also find him to be very selective with the opposition. Frank Martin is not an easy fight, but I'm not picking Frank Martin to win that.
No.
I don't think you are either. I don't know who is, especially after his last performance, which we talked about. We actually have some good comments here that I think are worth getting to. XL, I think, feels exactly the same way as you and I do. I'm not excited at all for Loma Kambosos. Of course, I'm going to watch it,
though. to be honest, and I'm going to probably give away my pick with this. I'm just watching to see how Loma looks. That's it. Yes. I just want to see if Loma has a good performance. He's one of my favorite boxers. So I'm tuning in just for Loma.
And if Kambosos could surprise me. I'm intrigued at that possibility, right? Like what if, because this happens sometimes. What if, you're not going to believe me, but what if
I listen, you know what? And this is different from this is totally different from Ryan and Devin Haney.
Yes.
Right? Because like Ryan was doing a bunch of erratic stuff before the fight. But Loma's skill set is elite. Like he's one of the. At one point, we were talking about Lomachenko being pound for pound #1 boxer in the world.
Seriously.
That's what was
He's still on a lot of pound for pound lists right
right.
now.
And he thought he beat Teofimo Lopez. A lot of people thought that he beat Teofimo Lopez as well. I think Teo was the only one that beat him distinctively, to be honest with you.
1000%, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I had Haney narrowly winning
Could have
that
gone
fight,
either way, especially
but
that last round.
it wasn't convincing. Yes.
Yeah, so Teofimo Lopez was the only one to me that did it distinctively. So Lomachenko, ever since that, has kind of been on this weird run. And to be honest with you, I like this fight with George Kambosos Jr. because, and I'm not saying boxing is rigged or anything like that, but I feel like Loma is at the part of his career that he's being set up to fight these guys where it's like we kind of see the L coming. Right. Like, so when they mentioned that he was going to fight Shakur Stevenson at one point before this fight got announced, I was like, I don't know if that's a good fight for Loma because you kind of see the path that they have Shakur on, right? Shakur is supposed to be like the next king, even though if you don't find him entertaining or whatnot, but he's being set up to be a face of boxing. And I looked at that fight and I thought to myself, I don't know if this is good for Loma because Devin Haney was also being set to that path to be the king. And I feel like some people thought Loma got robbed. So I didn't want him in a situation where he got robbed again. And I feel like this is the perfect fight for him. Now, if George Kambosos can get it done against Lomachenko, and I'm being disrespectful, I got fam in Australia, so I'm sorry I'm saying this. I will apologize on the show. I will straight up apologize because I think you know where I'm going to go with my pick with this. I just think it's time for Loma to obviously, get a title again and go on his last run. Let's get to some more comments. We'll go to our boy Ryan here. Loma Tank has to happen. I think it's a massive fight for Tank as well. Because everyone's like, who does Tank have on his resume? Who does Tank have on his resume? I think he's the best lightweight in the world. If he had Lomachenko on his list, I think people would have to shut up.
Would Lomachenko be the best name on his list? Best fighter on his list?
Yeah, because I think Ryan Garcia is right now.
Ooh. I think some people might put Isaac Cruz above.
Okay, Ryan. Yeah. I think so,
it's one of those two, though. I mean, I love Leo Santa Cruz, but like at the stage he fought him.
Actually, that's a good win. I might put Leo, because Leo, think about it, he's a former champ.
In terms of accomplishments, it's Lomachenko. I just wonder, this part of this is like, how does Lomachenko look this weekend? This is why this matters. If Lomachenko looks great, then yeah, it would be Lomachenko still. But if he like looks older, sluggish, and like barely ekes out like a majority decision win over George Kambosos, then we're probably going to be like, oh, Isaac Cruz might have been more live at the time he fought Gervonta Davis.
I also think that Isaac Cruz at that point wasn't like the Isaac Cruz that we see now, right? He's a champ now. But I also think that when I take a look at the champs in that division, the 140-pound division, I don't know if he's my favorite. We'll keep it at that. Let's go over to Nerd. Nerd, this is what I was saying. Top Rank will try to feed Loma to Shakur. Yes, they're going to try to feed him, or Navarrete. And so, listen, Hustle Man says Lomachenko, Navarrete. I don't like the size of that. The size of that scares me. I don't know if I'd want that as Loma. That's a big fight, though, for Navarrete, who is actually fighting pretty soon in San Diego.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'd rather see here's the thing. I don't think, because if they go the route of Shakur and Loma, if Loma wins this, after this fight, we're probably not going to see Lomachenko against any of these dudes, because I think Shakur Stevenson will probably win that fight. I don't know. Like, there's a world where volume beats Shakur Stevenson, who doesn't have enough output in that fight. I'm willing to give Shakur Stevenson time to, like, I don't think he's going to be the same dude who fought Edwin De Los Santos in his next fight. Like, I actually think he's going to come out and try to like make a statement, I guess.
I would wonder what those odds would be, Shakur and Loma. But if Loma had a good performance against George Kambosos Jr., which we're going to get into all of this into the next portion within like the next 2 minutes, I would take a look at those lines, and I know the cards would go to Shakur, but depending on how, I think I could, if whatever the odds might be, I would maybe place a bet on Lomachenko.
I think Shakur would be the favorite. Slight. Though.
Yeah.
I think it'd be slight, like no more than like minus 200. And I think it'll be a bet on like youth and defense more
An
than
a
anything else.
an aging Lomachenko, of course. So let's get
Yeah.
right into it, Brian. Straight up on the money line, Vasiliy Lomachenko.
Oh, hold on. I messed up. Lomachenko's not minus 180. I gave away my pick though.
Oh, you did. Okay.
My bet.
Well,
So
while
that'd be
Brian fixes that, I made a mistake too because this is a live. So we make mistakes here on the live sometimes. Don't judge us, guys. Let's get to Money Be Green.
Motherfucker, money be green. Money feel like money. That shit look green to you?
All right, let's try this again.
imagine if it was minus 180.
That'd be crazy. Okay, so Vasiliy Lomachenko straight up on the money line is a minus 750,
Yeah.
and George Kambosos is a plus 475. The line is crazy there. Brian, is that disrespectful to George Kambosos Jr. before you get into your pick?
There's real value in George Kambosos if you think like if I'm not gonna walk this line, like I'm not gonna place a bet on George Kambosos, but I don't love my bet on Lomachenko. Like I don't like because the value which we're gonna get to is not awesome. I just think he's gonna win that fight. But like, man, if you want to bet on the age, because again, Lomachenko is not just 36 years old now. He hasn't fought in a year. He hasn't fought since the Devin Haney fight. And age in the sport just comes. It's Ryan Hong says Cambosa should be plus 9999999, just a bunch of nines. Oh my god, you get rich betting on him if you won that fight. But like, yeah, I would probably want to line this up a little closer, but I think this is a testament to, Vegas is getting all the action on Vasiliy Lomachenko, and everyone's betting on Vasiliy Lomachenko, and rightfully so, given the resumes and things of that nature. But George Kambosos had an interesting comment that I read. He said that Vasiliy Lomachenko is not a killer no more. And I remember Shakur Stevenson tweeting out before or during or after the Devin Haney fight, but it was around that time being like, yo, he's not the same dude anymore, especially at this weight class. I feel like this is something that other boxers are seeing. It feels like one of those examples where like he's being pumped up by Top Rank. He's being pumped up by the media. He's still on some pound for pound list. And all the other boxers are sort of like, man, he's not really that dude anymore. So I wonder what's gonna happen there as it relates to that. I can't get to sprinkling on George Kambosos though. I just can't do it.
Oh, we gotta get to this comment actually, because Ryan always makes me crack up. Ryan, good friend of the show here. I take out 4 mortgages if Loma is a minus 180. It's one of those things where I don't think the line is disrespectful actually to George Kambosos. I think the one thing that he has is that it's going to be in his backyard. So if it was a close fight on the cards, then I think George Kambosos could maybe have a scorecard go his way. But I do think when we talk about skill set, that Lomachenko still has his skill set. Like Loma's never been a guy that's been like one punch power. Like he'll break you down throughout the fight. He's skilled. He moves around really well. And stylistically, though, I think this is actually a really good match because George Kambosos Jr., he is skilled as well, right? He doesn't have that one punch power, did drop Teofimo Lopez. But at the same time, when we talk about skill set, like styles make fights, I actually think this fight is going to be entertaining because George
Yeah.
Kambosos Jr., he's not a guy that's going to be running around the ring. He's going to go in there and he's going to try to establish a jab. And a guy like Loma, let's see when he starts to get it going, right? Is it going to be something that where we don't see him get going in the 6th round, or is it going to be like Jermaine Ortiz, that fight where I was like, whoa, Loma got started a little bit early in this one. He's heard the haters talk because I think he got started like in the 2nd round. Like we started Loma get going a little bit earlier in that fight.
But remember, Jermaine Ortiz got a lot of the rounds after that. And then Lomachenko picked it up late. Like it's almost like, he's like wanted to see if he still had it too early. And then he kind of like just, oh shit, wait, no, I gotta save some of this for rounds like 8 through 12 or whatever. Jermaine Ortiz kind of had that fight up until like round 10 or so.
Some people were like, Jermaine Ortiz is gonna win. Like, I think for Loma is like he can't take rounds off. He ends up taking rounds off out of nowhere. And I'm like, why? You're in great shape. Is it the age? Like, I don't know. But at 36 years old, I think he has to make a statement. So, Brian, let's get right back into it. How are you betting on this fight when you take a look at the line and it's like that?
By the way, good loser leaves town fight you can make between Jermaine Ortiz and George Kambosos. That should be the next fight. I have Lomachenko winning by decision at -180. I just don't think George Kambosos is gonna get knocked out here. Like as you said, he's extremely tough. There's gonna be juice on Lomachenko to get the stoppage. I don't think it's gonna happen. Lomachenko also hasn't stopped anybody in a while. I think 2019 may have been his last stoppage. So I think I always talk about this, and I've talked about this as it relates to Canelo Alvarez. Like guys,
It was Nakatani.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a little more recent.
2021.
He's got one. That's his only one since 2019, and that was the last. 2019 was like the last time I felt like I saw like peak Lomachenko, because the tail fight was weird, and since then it's just been like, the performances have been the performances. But Nakatani also, like, respectfully,
Hey, that's a name though. Like when I take a look at Teofimo Lopez's list, I'm like, oh, he's got Nakatani on there. Like he's got like people don't talk about it, and this is not a Teofimo. Like he's not fighting anytime soon. But Teofimo Lopez has names on his resume. Like he's legit. Like people should give him more respect.
He who shall not be named should have also had Nakatani on his resume, but then he got gassed out and late in the fight, as he always does. Convicted double murderer, or whatever the case may be, but we're not going to talk about him. Anyway, so yeah, I think Lomachenko is going to win this fight by decision. That's where I'm at.
All right. Well, Bryan lives in New York City. If you heard a little bit of that noise there,
it's just dickheads on the highway. You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck has a fancy car in New York City? You know what I mean? Like,
I would figure a lot of people have fancy cars.
It's a waste of fucking time. It's like, where are you driving to? You have this little fucking thing here, and then what? It's just gonna be a whole bunch of like communities and shit. You're not gonna rev up for fucking anybody. It's dumb. If you have a luxury car in New York City, you're a fucking idiot. Anyway,
let's get to my bet now. After Bryan's rants about cars in the city. Anyways,
fucking dickheads in this neighborhood, I swear.
More money has come on Vasiliy Lomachenko to win by decision. So I just took a look at one sports book, and it's sitting at -175. I'm going to take Loma by decision. I don't know if he gets the stoppage against George Kambosos Jr., but if you do believe that he does, it's a +500 in rounds 7 through 12, which I think is interesting. I think for Loma to beat up on George Kambosos Jr., which there's a possibility that he could break him down throughout the fight. For me, I don't know what Lomachenko we're going to get at 36. I still think he's going to be winning a lot of rounds, but I think George Kambosos is going to be winning some rounds as well. I would be surprised if it was like 115, 113, or if a card went George Kambosos' way. I'm thinking it's going to be maybe like 116, 112. Maybe something along the lines of that.
117, 111, something like that.
Yeah, I see Lomachenko getting the win. And honestly, I just want to see how he does it, if he does it in style. So that's how I'm taking this bet. If you think I'm sleeping on George Kambosos Jr. and you're going to bet on him, please drop your slips. And you know what? At +475, that's lots of value if you want to bet on a guy like George Kambosos. I don't think I will, but that definitely is lots of value. Let's get to some comments. Let's go to our boy XL, where he says, I think beating Loma at 36 is not going to give him the credit you would think he should get. I still think it's a name because he's still looked at as a guy, like some people still have him on a pound for pound list. You might not, but he still makes some lists. So I think it's a name that you can look at and be like, you know what? That's a name. With that being said, though, what is your guys' thoughts on Pitbull rematching Tank? Do you guys want to see it? And how do you guys think that fight plays out if it was to happen again? I think it plays out with possibly Tank knocking him out this time because his hand he hurt it during the fight. And Bryan's laughing when I said that. He hurt his hand during that fight with Pitbull Cruz. And I don't want to see the rematch. I'd rather see Tank against someone else. I'd rather see Tank against Shakur Stevenson. I'd rather see Tank against Lomachenko. I'd rather see Tank against a guy like Devin Haney, Navarrete as well. That's a firefight. I don't even want to see the comments for Tank and Navarrete. I think I would be disappointed in a lot of people if I took a look at those comments for that fight. But those are fights that I would want to see, and I would still take Tank in that fight. What about you?
Not interested in a Pitbull Cruz rematch. I've talked about it before as a possibility. I'm not really that interested in it. I also think Pitbull Cruz is being given a lot of credit lately. Like a lot. Like people think he's the boogeyman at 140. I want to see him fight Subriel Matias.
I think that's a great fight, though. Mexico, Puerto Rico. That would
And
be
two guys who
crazy.
go to war and don't give a fuck and think that if you're a defensive fighter, that basically like you're a coward. You know what I mean? Like,
And they both take a punch too, right? And
arguably the best fight you could, probably the best action fight you can make right now in the sport. Maybe.
I also think that's probably one of the biggest international fights that you could make, because you could have it in Mexico City or Puerto Rico, and it would be massive.
Yeah, but they're gonna have that shit in like Vegas.
I would go to. That's a fight I would go to pay to see, but I also think it's a nerd fight. Like, I don't think any of my casual boxing fans that are friends would be like, "Yo, I'm gonna watch Subriel Matias and Isaac Cruz tonight."
Well,
like,
I think no. I
for
think
us, we know it's big. I'm just saying, like a casual boxing fan. Like, I don't know if they're into it.
The casuals, they know about Isaac Cruz.
Yeah.
I like the Tank fight kind of put him on the map a little bit, but since then, like, and he's knocked out Rolly now. Like the casuals know about Isaac Cruz. They don't know as much about Subriel Matias, but they would learn very quickly because I think Subriel Matias, like, I would favor his height and reach in that fight, and I've seen him take like thumping ass shots that would have dropped like most other people, and just like stare at the motherfucker that hit him, take more, and it's just like he's a robot for now. I don't know if that's gonna last forever, but for now, he is. I can't wait to see Subriel next month, by the way, against Liam Parra. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's gonna be really good. All right, let's get to some final comments before we get up and out of here. We're gonna go over to Jesus, a friend of the show. Loma blows out Kambosos.
He didn't say Kambosos.
Cambo Bumso?
Yeah.
Close.
You could have said
Cambumps.
Kambosos.
Yeah. That's
Kambosos.
Jesus, by the way, friend of the show, is always leaving some of the funniest comments. Next to
Jesus,
Ryan.
Who are your favorite boxers? Because you don't like anybody, man.
He likes Canelo, right?
No, he hates Canelo.
Jesus, you don't like Canelo? I thought you did.
Speak for yourself. No, he does not like Canelo Alvarez.
I'm pretty sure he agreed with me one time when I put him on the pound for pound. Like, I still had Canelo top 5. Bryan.
I like this bet, by the way. Ryan Hong, over half a knockdown in the fight, plus 120. I like that. I wouldn't put a ton on it, but I like that because there's a chance. Like Lomachenko, George Kambosos, as you said, I think more of an action fight than we expect. I think there could be a flash knockdown here.
Jesus, did you see Virgil Ortiz's last fight? Oh my God, first round.
Thomas Delorme is reaching like Can status.
Hey, I don't care. That was a great.
I saw what Boots Ennis did to him a while back. Like he's
See, me and Jesus like the same fighters. Bam, Bud Crawford, who doesn't like Bud, and of course the monster.
I like all the guys he mentioned too.
Yeah,
Terrence Crawford might be my favorite right now.
For sure. Mine. It's, you know what? In a way too. I have Anyway pretty up there as well. But you know what? I do want to come out with a weight bully list. So maybe we'll do that for you guys, because that was actually an interesting conversation we had on a post-fight show this past weekend. We will be coming with some more content next week, guys. Thank you so much for rocking with us this past week. If you like the live shows, let us know. Drop some comments. We'll continue to do these live shows as well. What's up, Ryan?
Ryan, what are the odds for Tim Tszyu and Virgil Ortiz? I've been waiting for this. I want to know what the odds are for this fight. I think Virgil Ortiz is going to be a favorite.
Ryan, type faster.
Or else I'm going to have to look it up. Oh my God. Speaking of action fights. Oh my God.
I think I would take Virgil Ortiz.
I'm 1000% taking
over Tim Tszyu.
Yeah.
Over Tim Tszyu, but that's a fight where it's like if the odds are
hold on. I got to bet Ortiz right now. What do you mean?
Yeah, I think more money's going to come up on Ortiz. But you know what? I think Tim Tszyu has a really good chance in that fight too.
He does.
Tim Tszyu does. And if he didn't have that bloody mess in the last fight against Fundora, I think it could have gone differently, because after that head, like after those heads clashed, the fight changed. The entire fight changed. Like, he kept on trying to wipe his blood off his face. It was just absolutely bloody. So I think Tim Tszyu, for the most part, Brian's actually betting right now, I can tell.
Yeah, I'm looking at lines because they also have Isak Cruz and Rayo Valenzuela because that's coming up August 3rd on the Terrence Crawford card. And Isak Cruz is minus 500. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, bro. Like, Valenzuela might get knocked out, but that's a tough fight.
Yeah. He also has power too.
Yeah, he decapitated Chris Colbert.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it was one of the best knockouts at the time. I was like, whoa. So I actually think that's a firefight.
Terrence
That's a
Crawford
fight.
minus 600, Gervonta Davis minus 575 against Frank Martin.
Whew, I think that line's huge. I think they got to give Frank Martin a little bit more respect there. We have been rocking on this live though for almost an hour. Bryan is going to be leaving on a vacation pretty soon. We want to say thank you to everyone that's rocked out with us. If you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, guys. It helps the channel grow. Thanks to everyone that joined us, left a comment. And if you're watching this after, make sure to leave some more comments because we will get to them. Bryan, any final thoughts before you take off on your beach vacation? Go see the flamingos in Aruba.
Next week we are planning on lives surrounding Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury, which I can't wait for that. I'll be back in time for that one. So yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that.
All right, enjoy the fights this weekend, guys, and thanks so much for joining us.